A century ago, people in Europe wore clothes made from nettles, soft, durable, and locally produced. In fact, during the First World War, Germany produced thousands of uniforms from nettle fibers because cotton imports were blocked. Or take cars. In the 1950s, wood trim and natural fibers were common in vehicle interiors. Natural didn't mean old fashioned, it meant premium. And food? Historically, we didn't wrap everything in plastic. Sustainable packaging wasn't an innovation, it was just daily life. Bread was wrapped in cloth, milk in glass bottles, and fruit carried in baskets. So, how did we land here? Overconsumption, convenience, and globalization pushed us towards cheaper, imported, and disposable, well, everything. Today, Europe imports around 60% of its textile fibers, polyester dominates clothing, and less than 1% of textiles are recycled into new textiles. But here's the big question. As we look towards 2030, could progress mean circling back to those older traditions, but this time powered by science and innovation? That's what the Bio-LUSH project is exploring. And in this first episode, we'll call the project coordinator, Professor Aji Mathew, to ask about how this journey unfolds between the lessons of the past and the possibilities of the future.
Hello, Professor Mathew. I hope you're doing great. This is Milica from the Bio-LUSH Podcast. Do you have a couple of minutes for us today?
Yes, Milika, good to hear from you. So, of course, I have some time for you.
Thank you. Could you first a little bit introduce yourself?
So, I am Aji Mathew, and I'm a professor in material chemistry at Stockholm University, and I work mainly with bio-based polymeric materials and their applications.
Before we start with the questions about the project, I want to ask you one question that we will ask all of our guests in the podcast. So, what is the one little sustainability move that you've seen lately and that you went like, oh, this is really inspiring?
The main thing I will say that there is a lot of effort now to combine sustainability with safety, safe and sustainable by design. I think that is something which is going to be needed and the next big move in this field.
Okay. And I think that we are also thinking a lot about it in our project as well. Maybe, firstly, if you can say to us, how did the idea actually come about? So, was there a moment like when you thought, oh, I can really make this happen and like make a change here?
Of course, as I told you already, I work a lot with biomass, bio-based materials, and sustainability thinking related to biomass utilization was actually the start of this thinking. So, how can we make sure that sustainability is there when we source the material and then all the way up to the final product? So, that was the main thing. And there is a lot of interest to make sure that the sustainable sourcing of biomass is there, should be there. But the another thing is like, how can you measure and benchmark sustainability so that we have this so-called sustainability indexing is needed. Even when we talk about sustainability, how to measure it and quantify it or benchmark it. These are actually the starting point for Bio-LUSH project.
I think that is also visible by our consortium that every aspect of what you just said, not only for like making the final product as a material, but also all of this background, what is happening before the people see the product is covered. There is a lot of now sustainability project in Europe. And actually, I think that this is the good date that we are talking about it because the CBJU just recently published that in 2025, they funded 24 projects. But why do you think that Bio-LUSH is funded?
Okay, we got Bio-LUSH funded almost 2 years back. And of course, we are halfway through. So the focus of Bio-LUSH project is fibers from biomass, especially residues or underutilized or unexploited sources. So which is a good angle to biomass in general. And of course, we also make sure that the biomass we use is available in Europe. And I will also say that resilience and sustainability of biomass and bio-derived materials is what is the focus in Bio-LUSH. And as I also told, like we also have to develop methodologies to validate the sustainability profile. And so what I think which made Bio-LUSH interesting for the European Commission to fund it is to the question how to balance between the properties, performance, and sustainability.
Okay, great. I think this is the good tip also for all people who want to submit the projects for the next call and who are thinking about like where is the catch? Maybe we can find it. And we mentioned a lot biomass, but before we go to the field, I was thinking maybe can you take us a bit for a second inside of the lab? And maybe tell us some of one experiment in Bio-LUSH that also could be interesting for our listeners, and they will be like, "Oh, why can I see it with my eyes?"
I think if I have to pick one, of course, it's difficult to pick one. We have so many interesting project fronts in Bio-LUSH right now because we are at the roughly at the halfway, little bit more halfway through. And so, what I think is the stinging nettle, which is very much common in Europe, which is a traditional textile fiber. And how do you extract high quality fibers from that? And also nanoscale fibers and use it in high-end applications or very, bio-based, very important bio-based products is what I think is going to be. Yeah, that's something what I'm also looking forward to see the final outcome from the project on this material.
Yes, me too. I think that we will be all like amazed by it because we are working on it for now 2 years, and we have, of course, more 2 3 years to come. But and thank you for introducing one of our next guests in the podcast because Professor Pasquet, I think that he will be a really interesting guest to talk more about the stinging nettles and
Yes.
this topic. So. Of course, now we mentioned the nettles and we mentioned the biomass, and I think that a big focus of the European Union now is the biomass production and biomass producers. So, how do Bio-LUSH connects farmers and with what we are doing now? Like, what we mean to them actually?
Okay, that is a very interesting question. I can also say that this is one of the interesting angles within Bio-LUSH, but also we are also trying to find a good way to connect to farmers. But what I wish for is that if Bio-LUSH can inform and educate the farmers that some of these ignored species like nettle and hemp can provide high quality fibers and that can bring economic incentives to their farming. This is what my message to them is. And actually, we are developing good and resilient variety, for example, nettle, which can give high quality fibers inside the project. And I would be very happy to discuss this with the farmers and how can it be used in their farms and use it in the underutilized or marginal areas in their farms and get more high quality fibers and also more income out of that. And I think I want to say a little bit more about the both nettle and hemp, which is also being tested here in the project because they grow in marginal lands. Of course, they are perennial crops. They also help with pest control and soil restoration, and also actually, hemp especially is very good in storing carbon dioxide. So it will help the environment and the nature and everything in the soil, etc., in a much more than we think about. So this is the message I want to basically pass on to everybody. So we should definitely look more closer into this kind of biomass or bioresources we have around us.
Yes, I think especially for nettle, people are not really aware, even though it's almost the old-fashioned way of using it for the fibers. But the people now are mostly using it like as a medical plant, as a tea, or
Mm,
in the cuisines, different. But
mm.
now I think that it's really interesting that actually with the Bio-LUSH, you succeeded to bring them back in some new light, in more innovative light for this biomass and biofiber field. When we go out from the fields and go more back closer to the home and we walk into the store in 2030, do you know that is there any product that we can like what is the coolest maybe product that we might be able to trace back to Bio-LUSH?
Of course, what I wish to say is definitely the textile. which is textile
Mhm.
fibers, which is coming from a Bio-LUSH process, which can be either from hemp or nettle or even wood residues. Of course, I also have to say that the other one, that's one more. You asked for one, but I have maybe one more. Edible packaging materials, which is coming from nettle, is something I am also very enthusiastic about.
Hmm. Good. For me, I think if I have to choose, I think it will be like the 3D printing material because this is
Oh.
something that is a hot topic right now, but also the tricky topic because there is a lot of plastic now used in this sector.
Mm.
So, do you think that as we will have the more and more almost all houses will have a 3D printer in the future, if I think about it, because they are also really affordable right now. Do you think that maybe they could be run and they could use the Bio-LUSH filaments in the future, and that we can cover like this
Mm.
part, this sector?
Yeah, I think so. Like this is definitely, I have seen it happening already in many people, many homes, and many young people are interested to have their own bioprinters at home. And of course, the main advantage is that they can print parts which is not functioning anymore. The small parts which you don't have to replace the whole equipment, but you can print that part with a new polymeric
Hmm.
material like PLA or PET, etc. And then you can continue to use the product. And actually, in Bio-LUSH, we are developing a similar kind of concept. We have a bio-based composite filament which can be 3D printed. And this kind of a simple 3D printer can be used for our filament. So there is a possibility that it will be used by people in the future. It has all the characteristics which can be used like a standard 3D printing filament, polymer filament.
This is a really promising to hear from you, especially. So now, when we talk about the scaling up, actually, and possibility of 3D printing is really big to scale up. But industry somehow are hesitant to switch.
I am, yeah, of course, this kind of products has not reached the market, and I am not entirely sure that industries are reluctant to switch because,
Mhm.
yeah, I think I will put the responsibility on both sides. Like industries, of course, if they are looking for new materials and new bio-based products, are we ready to give them the solutions? Is a question I ask every day because if they tell that this specification, this kind of performance, and I want a fully bio-based system, can we give it to them at an affordable price? So that which means that it has to be in both sides. We need efforts on both sides. They should ask for it, specify what they need, and the research community should be able to meet the requirements. And of course, that's why this collaborative R&D projects is needed and to move forward. And that's why CBUJU kind of efforts is very important, where we work together to meet the requirements the industry is having.
Mhm. And I think that somehow Bailash maybe even predicted the future because we also saw recently that EU published this for textile producers new laws that the
Mm,
textile producers will need to pay like for the
mm,
textile waste. So I
mm,
think that more and more they will need the industries will need to like switch
mm,
more and more to the more sustainable
mm.
options. Maybe also to continue with this part is what is one misconception people often have about bio-based innovation, and what you wish that you could like set straight.
That is difficult to say, but at the same time, at least I can think that there is sort of a misconception, not only among the public, even among experts, that it will be difficult to compromise between quality and price when we move to bio-based systems. So this is something we need to show with example that we can have the quality and performance and at the same time at affordable cost for bio-based system and replace a current fossil-based material.
Maybe to get a bit more to, for example, me as a regular citizen, like why should I care about nettle fibers or the wood-based biocomposites? Like, what difference will it actually make in my life or in life in any EU citizen?
Mhm. Of course, I will say that, of course, the reducing the dependence of fossil polymers is, for me, the main, or generally the biggest, you know, incentive. But then I also think that this kind of an approach can produce more local jobs, which can help the local community economically and also yeah, environmentally, and also reduce the bio-based waste, because we have a lot of waste in the fields which is not being used and just being there. So we can reduce the, even though it is bio-based waste, we can make use of that. So these are the some ways in which think that it is sort of touching the life of an ordinary person.
Yes, I think that there is not a lot of education to farmers, especially in biomass producers, on what they actually can do, rather
Mm.
than just producing and what they can do with the waste. Uh, yes, bringing this topic to them and actually showing them that they can have more jobs with this with these opportunities. I think that we should also highlight it more, not just in Bio-LUSH,
Mm.
but also in other directives and work. And I mentioned EU citizens, but do you foresee that Bio-LUSH solutions could work in other regions and that we can replicate it maybe in other parts of the world?
Yes, I think so. I think by now, by the discussion until now, probably it is already clear that what we are trying to take out is what is the biomass which is around after we take the primary product. We can use the waste or secondary raw materials to make the materials we are trying to make here. So this is applicable everywhere actually, and any region. So, but of course, maybe the source can be different, because here we are focusing on nettle or seagrass or hemp. Maybe in another region it can be sugarcane, bagasse, or whatever is locally available, or bamboo, for example. So it depends on
Okay.
the region. So it is just to identify what is waste material which is not used or underutilized or not even thought about as a source of biomass or fibers. So it is possible to be replicated across the globe, I will say.
And I think that also it is vice versa because I read somewhere that Latin America actually exports a lot of the wood biomass to Europe. So
Hmm.
maybe we can also share the knowledge and not just the biomass and the products. And last question for today is if you could choose one Bio-LUSH product to bring home today for yourself or your family, what that would be?
Yeah, I think here I have to say the 3D printing filament. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I thought that, as we discussed already, like if we can make a biocomposite filament from this residue biomass, which is 3D printable, which we have already done to a large extent, and if it is commercialized so that people can start using it in their home 3D printer, hobby printer, that will be something. And I think that's something I would like to test at home.
Yes, I think that I would choose this one as well for me. Okay, thank you so much for this call and thank you for taking time for the podcast. I would like to say to our listeners as well that if they have some questions regarding the project, regarding what we are doing, they can share it in the comments on social media and we will be happy to answer them.
No, thank you so much. It was really nice and interesting to talk and also share some information from Bio-LUSH with everybody. Thank you for the opportunity.